Thank you all for being here. My name is Louisa Goldman, for those of you who don't know me. My husband and I, Robert Goldman, we've been members of Chabad for about 15 years, and it's our distinct pleasure to bring to you today this historic conversation with Helga Melmed in commemoration of Holocaust Remembrance Day. So thank you for being here. The proceeds from today's event are going to the Chabad Youth Scholarship Fund at Helga's request. I've had the pleasure of knowing Helga and her family through Chabad for over 10 years. And she's also a neighbor. I saw a lot of our Pelican Point friends here. Helga lives in Pelican Point. She's our neighbor. Today's event is presented by Chabad of Venice in Northport. Chabad is the largest outreach organization in the world. We provide education and social services in our community and around the world. Today's event is presented by Chabad of Venice in Northport. I would like to thank our sponsors who helped us put this together. The Gulf Coast Community Foundation, the Jewish Federation of Sarasota Manatee, the Herald Tribune, and our very own Venice Gondolier. Thank all of the Chabad members who are here, the volunteers and friends. It's with your support that we can achieve our mission. Thank you. And now I have the pleasure to introduce to you Vladimir Tsipin. He's an immigrant from the former Soviet Union. Vladimir has become a nationally recognized name in the performance art world, known for his dazzling performances in the New York Philharmonic and Carnegie Hall. We are fortunate to have him in our community, and he will be playing from the soundtrack of Schindler's List today. So please welcome Vladimir Tsipin.
Dark clouds began to cover the skies of Europe, the clouds of Nazism. And as they invaded Warsaw, they moved Jews, men, women, and children into the ghettos. Slowly, over time, the ghettos began to empty. Even the birds stopped singing, as if they knew what came next. The trains of doom filled with the innocent and the pure, carrying them to their deaths. And it was on one such train headed to the death camp Treblinka, in the midst of the terror, the gasping, the weeping, and the despair, that a lone voice was heard singing. His name was Azriel David Fasting, the cantor of the saintly Mosnitzer Rebbe, Rabbi Shaul Yedidya Elisam. People thought he had lost his mind, but Azriel's heavenly and sweet voice continued its soulful tune. There he was, face aglow, eyes squeezed tight with concentration, fixated upon the words of one of the 13 principles of the Jewish faith, Ani Ma'amin. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach, the final redemption. Gradually, the hundreds of listening ears joined his song, at first quietly, but slowly growing louder and louder. Soon the song spread from car to car. Every mouth that could still draw a breath joined in Azriel's haunting melody, Anima. His eyes red from crying, and his cheeks wet with tears. Cantor tore a piece off of his own shirt and jotted down the notes of his new composition. There he proclaimed, "I will give half my share of the world to come to the person who will take my song to my saintly teacher, the Mosnitzer Rebbe, who had escaped to the shores of the United States." A hushed silence descended upon the train, and two young men appeared, promising to bring the song to the Rebbe at any cost. Bidding farewell to their brothers and sisters, they jumped out of a hole they broke in the train's roof. One miraculously survived, and clutching dearly to the shirt, kept the melody alive. It was on Yom Kippur, just after the war, and the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, and the Mosnitzer Rebbe's synagogue in New York was filled with thousands upon thousands. As the Rebbe began singing the Anima Amin, the crowd wept bitterly, swaying back and forth as if in a different world. He trembled and declared, "On the journey to the gas chambers, this song was born from the ashes of millions, and it will be with this song that the Jewish people will march as the great Moshiach, the final redemption."
because this I don't want to forget anything. So at this time, I would like to introduce our fabulous rabbi, Rabbi Shalom Shmurley. We're very lucky to have him and his family in our community. At age 8, on a visit to New York with his father of blessed memory, he met the Rebbe Schneerson, also of blessed memory, and believed then that he wanted to also become a rabbi. So at 8 years old, he decided that's what he would like to do. Rabbi Shalom, as we like to call him, grew up in Zurich, Switzerland, and was educated in Switzerland, France, Israel, and New York. Learning to speak 7 languages along the way, he is funny, unassuming, and very tech-savvy. No, not like us. But most of all, he is unassuming and an amazing scholar with a depth of knowledge of Torah which will amaze you. 17 years ago, with his wife Hyrifka and their little baby girl Nahama, they accepted the post of emissaries for our area on behalf of Chabad International. And that is how we got so lucky to have Rabbi Shalom. Now be your fabulous, funny self.
Thank you, Louisa. The tech-savvy part was funny. Thank you, Louisa and Vladimir. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. First and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to our sponsors, the volunteers, and the Chabad staff for the hard work in making this event possible. Thank you so much. Today, we gather to commemorate the victims of the Holocaust, which remains one of the darkest and most tragic periods in human history. The systematic extermination of 6 million Jews and other minority groups by the Nazi regime during World War II, among them my great-grandparents and my grandmother's 10 siblings, who I'm named after one of them, who were killed in the Kovno ghetto in Lithuania. It is our responsibility to ensure that the memory of the Holocaust and its victims lives on, and to work toward a future where such terrible darkness and evil never ever happen again. Unfortunately, the rise of anti-Semitism and hate crimes is a painful reminder that we still have a long way to go. As my mentor, the Chabad Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson of blessed memory, was famous for saying, "A little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness." This message reminds us that in the face of darkness and adversity, we need to bring more light by being a source of kindness and goodness. We were all created in God's image and share this responsibility. So let us rededicate ourselves to promoting education, understanding, and tolerance in our world. It is my great honor to introduce our main speaker, our very dear Helga Melmed. Helga and her late husband, Charlie, were one of the first families instrumental in establishing Chabad of Venice 17 years ago. From the moment she met my wife and myself, she became involved with Chabad's various programs, including our Hebrew school and being a nurse in our summer camp. She even helps, till today, deliver holiday meals to those in need at her young age of 95. Thank you, Helga. Helga is an inspiring figure dedicated to making a positive impact in the world. Through her ongoing volunteer work, she has made it her life mission to share her story with so many. It is an honor to be Helga's rabbi and to work with her and to learn from her. Her spirit, wisdom, and kindness are an inspiration to us all, and I'm deeply grateful to have her in our life. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Helga Melmed.
Hello?
I also want to welcome Lisa, who's Helga's daughter. Thank you for helping Helga.
Just start. Okay. I start with Yad Vashem. Lest we forget, we should not forget the horrible time. I was born in Germany, and I am 95 years old. I've seen the bad, I've seen the good, and I've seen all of it. When I was born, Hitler started out. I had a very good childhood. My parents were most happy to have me, even though times had gotten sparse because of depression. But then it started with the hating of the Jews. I was 5 years old when I started school. My teacher already was washed into the Nazi regime. She told me I was a dirty Jew, and she beat my hands with a ruler. I ran home to my mother and cried, "Mommy, what is a dirty Jew? I took a bath, I was washed, my hair is clean. Why am I a dirty Jew?" Well, it's very hard for a mom to explain that to a 5-year-old. I kept in school for a little while, and then my parents took me out of public school because it became unbearable. I went to Jewish school. It was a private Jewish school. There were several of them in Berlin. And school was very, very good. Since everything started to become a problem in Berlin, we weren't allowed to go to the movies, we weren't allowed to go to the park, we weren't allowed to go anyplace. We weren't even allowed into the vegetable store to buy a banana. So school became everything. We stayed in school from morning to night. It was a beautiful school out in the country. We even had a swimming pool, which was unusual for those days. So things were very good, and my parents sheltered me from all the misery that was happening in Berlin. There were laws, but my mother never said anything about them. When our radio disappeared, she says, "Oh, it was an old thing, I gave it away." When the silverware disappeared, Mama said, "It's no good anyway, I got different stuff." So I wasn't aware of what was happening. But then my clouds came down. One day I went to school. It was the 9th of November, 1938. I can still remember it very, very vividly. The Nazi soldiers were burning my school. There were flames coming all over. They had a big pit, and they kept running in and took all our schoolwork and all our books and everything and threw it in this pit. There it was. It all burned. We were standing and hugging, and we were crying. I was 10 years old at the time. It was a very traumatic experience for a little girl. We went underground. Teachers and private citizens took a group of children into the basements where people lived, and they taught us. They taught us some arithmetic, they taught us different things. They taught us how to go on in life, and they were very good at it. But in 1941, it was October, and the soldiers banged on our door in the middle of the night. I woke up screaming. My father went and opened the door, and there were the Nazis. They said, "You have 20 minutes to get out and get to a better point, to a better place." What in the world could be better than home? I asked my mama. She didn't know either. We were put into trucks and we were taken to a gathering place, what they called it. The gathering place was an old slaughtering house. There were hooks all around the walls, and they hung people on those hooks. There was screaming. My parents put me in the middle and held me. They didn't want me to see what was going on, but I still heard the screams. I still saw the blood on the floor, and I could still smell the disaster. We stayed in that terrible place. I don't remember how long. But then we were put into cattle cars. We were so squashed. There were many, many, many people in the cattle car. As I found out later, that particular day, the 18th of October of 1941, there were 1,000 Jews from Berlin taken to the city of Lodz. Well, not to the city of Lodz, to the ghetto of Lodz. The ghetto of Lodz was occupied by the people from Poland already, the Jews from Poland, and they were starving already. It wasn't a good place. It wasn't a good place for those people to be. And then they dumped 1,000 German Jews in there. Can you imagine? We weren't very welcome. We had a different language, we had a different culture. We had to eat just like they did, and things got scarcer and worse. I lived in the ghetto, and we managed to get along, in spite of everything. We had to work. My father was taken out of the ghetto and made to work in the city of Lodz, digging ditches and different things. There was a good side about that, because he used to come home tired and exhausted at night time, but he brought coffee grounds and potato peels from the garbage of the German people. This became our supper. My mother would grind up the potato peels, she'd mix them with the coffee grounds, she'd have a little bit of mineral oil or something, and she would fry over the fire. And that was our supper. It filled our tummies, and it was good. I was begging for an onion, but there was no onion to be had ever. So I had to eat it without my onion. One day my father went to the marketplace where they gathered, and all the men that were going out, and they were used as target practice for the soldiers. My father was shot. He never came home from work that night. I do not know what happened to him, except that he was dead. My mother fell apart. Her heart was broken, really. broken. We kept working, but Mama got sick, and she got sicker every day. Finally, she couldn't work anymore. She laid down and just stayed laying down. I kept going to work. In the evenings, I would try and do something to help her out, and I would try to find some food around. Things were bad. Mama got worse. My birthday came along. It was 1941, 42. It was 1942. I was 14 years old. It was my 14th birthday. And my mother got out of bed. She sat in a chair and she said, "Happy birthday, child," and she handed me a present. It was the best present I ever got. It was an onion. And I was so happy with it. But it came too late because my daddy was already dead, and the coffee grounds and the potato peels were not available anymore. But I still ate the onion. It was something to eat. My mother went to bed after she gave me my present. She kissed me good night and said happy birthday. That was the last time I saw my mother. She passed away during the night of my first 14th birthday. It's a tough one to get over. No matter how old you get, you still remember your mother. I kept on working. I went to the factory where I was sewing buttons onto uniforms of the soldiers. It was hard for me to do because I had to do so many of them, and my fingers were small and tender still. I had never done something like that before. I worked there, and one day the eldest of the Jews came around, Mr. Rumkowski, and he inspected the factories periodically, and he decided to take in 8 children. And he picked out 4 girls and 4 boys. I was very lucky to be picked out. He gave us a different place to live. He gave us more food. We had a housekeeper, and for ghetto life, we had it pretty good. We went to work still. We came back, and the housekeeper usually had something to eat for us. And we spent the evening together, the 4 girls and the four girls and the 4 boys. And we became very close. They were all from different countries. The girls, one was from Poland, one was from Czechoslovakia, one was from Russia, and one was from Hungary. We had different languages and different cultures. But we managed to get along. We managed to love each other. and we stayed for the whole time together. Life went on in the ghetto working, and things went pretty fair. For ghetto life, it wasn't that bad. One day, the ghetto was getting to be emptied. The Russian soldiers had come close from the Russian front to the Polish area, and they were threatening to take over the camps. And we were being shipped out. They tried to empty the ghetto out. We knew through the grapevine where we were going. We were put in cattle cars and we were shipped to Auschwitz. Auschwitz was a terrible place. We arrived there. And it said, Arbeit macht frei. Arbeit macht frei. Well, not that kind of work, but we didn't work there. We were put into barracks, 4 in one line, sitting with our legs spread, and the next person inside, and 5 in a row. We were sitting like that and sleeping like that. Every couple hours we were taken outdoors. We had to muster up, and we had numbers sewn to our clothing, and they called out numbers, and we knew very well what happened to the people that were called out. We were very close to the gas chambers. We could see the smoke turn from black to white and from white to black. We could smell the flesh burning, and it was terrible. I can still smell that flesh burn sometimes. It's a horrible smell. If you ever singed a chicken off, you might even know that smell. We stayed in Auschwitz, I don't remember how long, and we were always afraid. It was such a scary place. The 4 of us clung together like glue. As far as age goes, we always lied about it. If it was convenient to be young, we gave our young age. If it was convenient to be older, we made ourselves older. We had lost weight already, some weight, and so you couldn't really see what we looked like. One day, the 4 of us were called. We went shaking to the place where they took us. They shaved every bit of our hair off. Here we were, 15-year-old girls, getting every bit of our hair shaved off. It was horrible. It was very humiliating. Then they put us in front of the little soldiers, the young soldiers, the men, and they made us get naked. 15-year-old girls. We weren't raised like that. And we were very humiliated. We were shaking. Then they took us and told us to go into the showers. Well, we thought that was the end of us. So we clung together and we said prayers. We sang and we said prayers and we sang some more. We went in and we looked. It was water. We were very shocked. We washed off like they told us to do, and then they threw some rags at us to get dried, and then they threw some more rags at us that were clothes from the people that they had killed, and we got dressed. We didn't have shoes, but we had some clothes. We were then put back onto cattle cars. The cattle cars were always stuffed. They were always horrible. They always had just one bucket in the center where we should eliminate ourselves, which always fell over right away, and in no time at all. The place was a mess. People were dying, people were fainting, and it was horrible. We drove and drove. And finally, we arrived in Hamburg. Hamburg, we thought. What's in Hamburg? Well, Hamburg was no better than that. First, we were in a warehouse where we had some hope because they put us into a warehouse, and the warehouse had big holes in it, and the holes led to some water. We were thinking of maybe we could run away from there, but there was no way. So we had to stay there. After a while, they took us out of the warehouse and they took us to Neuengamme. Neuengamme is a huge concentration camp which nobody knows about, but there were many of those, and this one was worse than Auschwitz, even though nobody ever paid attention to it. It had a gas chamber, and it made people work so hard that they had one place that they called the 100-day commando, where people were designed to work and starve and make sure that they died within 100 days. That was their goal. We didn't stay too long in Neuengamme. We were selected, the young women between the ages of 16 and 20-some were sent to Pappenbüttel, another camp that nobody ever heard about. Matter of fact, people used to laugh at me when I said Pappenbüttel. It's kind of a funny name. Pappenbüttel was a working camp. We were taken in trucks into the city of Hamburg, where we gathered big stones and debris from the bombing and put them into big lorries. We took the lorries, and two girls had to shove the lorries up a hill to a dumping area. Then we had to turn them over, empty them, go back, and start all over again. We were accompanied by two soldiers who had their guns on us. It was not a pleasant walk, but we did it. And actually, we managed to do these things and still keep our minds together. We collected little rags to put around our head. We collected newspapers where we could read the news, and we could wrap it around our feet that were very cold, because the winters in Germany are quite cold. And we worked. We got one big slice of the German farmer's bread. It was about yay big. And we used to cut that into 4 pieces. And then we would eat 1/4 at breakfast. Then we would also get a kettle full of what they called coffee. It was a brown liquid. It was warm. I can say that for it. we went to work after we had that. Then we worked and we had lunch where we got a kettle of water. We had our water and we had another quarter of our bread, which was good. At least it gave us a little strength for the afternoon. Then, at supper time, when we got back to the camp, they gave us soup. The soup contained of a kettle of water with some turnips and some potato peels. And we ate that. And we ate another quarter of our bread with the soup. That was supper. At bedtime, we would go out to the pump and we would pump water for each other. And we would have water and we would drink it and we would also have the last quarter of our bread. That way, we did not go to bed hungry. Well, sort of not hungry. We shared everything. We shared our mattresses and we shared our blankets. So we had 2 strong mattresses. We had two blankets and we slept 2 in one bunk and 2 in the other bunk. And that way we kept warm. It was pretty good. And sharing helped, and loving helped. We were very close. Life went on in the camp like that for quite a while. Then one day, the British came close to Hamburg, and we were moved out of Hamburg. We were taken on the trucks like we went to work, but we were just driven out of the city, and then we were made to walk. We walked from Hamburg all the way to Bergen-Belsen. We were weak already, and we were losing weight by the pound. We were walking and walking. It's approximately 90 miles, I found out later, but we kept walking. If you fell down, you were shot. If you ran away out of line, you fell down. Or if you ran, they shot you. Many people just passed out. Many people got shot. Few of us arrived in Bergen-Belsen. The 4 of us were marching along and we were holding each other up. We got a little break every so often. I don't know how long we walked. I know it was more than a day because it was getting dark and we were allowed to rest, and then we kept walking. We arrived in Bergen-Belsen and I was very, very sick. And we were separated. I don't know where my sisters went, and I was devastated, but I was too sick to even know. We were laying in those bunks or stables or whatever they were, and we were dying. And the soldiers came around. They dragged us out of there. If we didn't say hello or goodbye or moan or do anything, they would take you out, they would drag you out and put you in a mass grave. It didn't matter if you were still alive or not. As long as you were half dead or 3/4 dead, you went into the mass grave. Then there was this jubilant screaming one day. And I didn't know what it was. I was just semi-conscious. And I couldn't believe it, but this was when the British soldiers came and the American soldiers, and they freed Bergen-Belsen. I was dragged out onto a wooden board, and I got scared. I thought, oh no, this is the end of my life. But it turned out they put me on what they call the stretcher and taken me to a field hospital. I got marvelous care at the field hospital. I had typhus fever and consumption. I was very feverish at first and very contagious. But one day, Count Volker Bernadotte came and gathered some of us sick girls. He put us on a hospital ship. By now it was already June. We were freed in April. I had stayed at the field hospital until June. Then I was put into a ship. The ship's name was Castle, and we went from there to Sweden. In Sweden, we were taken on buses to the hospital in Sigtuna. I was in Sigtuna for a year and a half. The hospital was great. They treated us wonderful, and they fed us. I was 46 pounds when I left Bergen-Belsen, and I gained weight. When I went to the hospital in Sigtuna, my legs were so skinny that we could put our thumbs around like that. And our activity used to be, a week later we'd try again, and we could go this far. And a week later it was this far. So we were gaining weight, and we were getting stronger. And as we were stronger, we were allowed to get out of bed and walk around. Things became better. We got visitors. Well, the girls got visitors. I was not with my sisters anymore. The girls that were with me in the hospital were all different nations. The war had ended, and the diplomats used to come from different countries and visit with the girls and bring them different things from their country. I had no company. I was German. Who was going to come to me? But after a while, in the grapevines of the city, a man found out that I was German, and he came to visit me. He was not Jewish, but he had left Germany because he didn't agree with Hitler's policies, and he went to Sweden. He brought a wife, and he had 2 children that were born in Sweden. He was a very kind man, and he visited with me, and he brought me things. He brought me some candy. He brought me a very beautiful coat that was warm, and he was a nice man. Then, one day, when I got better enough to go out, he took me home for a weekend to meet his family. I got along with him very, very well. He had 2 little girls and a wife, and we made a very nice family. So he decided to keep me. And I stayed with him, with the family, for 3.5 years. I had a very good life in Sweden. I was like their daughter. I went to school there. I worked a little bit for him, and things were good. I lived in a nice house. I had my own room. I had my 2 little baby sisters. They were 10 years younger than me, but I loved them very dearly, and we spent lots of time together. Then my aunt found me. My aunt was my mother's sister, and she went to the World's Jewish Congress, and they did a lot of searching of people at the time, and they found me and gave my address to my aunt. I got a letter from her, and she immediately said she wanted me to come to America, and she did everything to bring me to this country. I wasn't so sure I wanted to come because I really loved Sweden. I really loved my family, and I thought I might want to stay there. But my aunt insisted. And it was not easy to come to America at that time. She had to do all kinds of stuff to guarantee my existence and to get visas and make sure I would not be a burden on the state. So in December of 19-something, I boarded a ship called Drowning Home. I think you remember. And I went to America. I do remember it was December, and I remember it was very stormy. And we rode for, I think, 10 days to get from Sweden to New York City. It was quite a trip, and we got seasick, and and things were pretty hectic, but it was a trip to a new country. I think I was 19 years old, or 18 years old at the time, going to a new country, all on my own, with $99 in my pocket, and a little suitcase of a few items. My cousin was at the harbor. He sent me a telegram saying that he had a pipe in his mouth and a carnation on his jacket, so I could recognize him. And I did recognize him. I hadn't met him since I was about 3 years old. I went to my aunt's house in Brooklyn, New York. I started high school at Washington Irving High School, and I worked at Beth Israel Hospital. I worked very hard at my schooling. My teacher handed me a big red Thorndike dictionary and said, "You learn English." And I did. That's how I did it. And I sat all night. I copied everything from the blackboard, and I copied my homework down, took it back to my aunt's house, and I would sit the whole night translating everything from English into German, and then I would do my homework in German, translate it back into English, and hand it in the morning like the other students. It took almost all night. It was not an easy job. I also graduated from high school after a year and a half. I cheated a little bit. I took German as a foreign language. I got 4 credits for it, which was amazing. graduated high school and I couldn't get into the hospitals. I wanted to become a nurse, but I couldn't get into the hospitals in New York City because they demanded me to be a citizen. So I was out of luck. But I applied at what then was Jewish Hospital in Philadelphia, and they took me in. And I went off to Philadelphia. Philadelphia Jewish Hospital changed into Albert Einstein Medical Center the year after I entered Jewish Hospital. But I am still an alumni of Albert Einstein Medical Center. While I was walking up to get registered to be a student, a young lady came up from the other direction with her mother, and her mother kept saying, "Make friends with her, make friends with her." And as it turned out, we became roommates. She became my best friend, my sister-in-law, and I loved her dearly. I studied at the hospital for what then was 3 years. We studied the first 6 months or so at Temple University, and then we studied the rest at the hospital while we were working. That was a very good time. I learned to speak English much better. I learned every swear word in the dictionary because the girls were busy teaching them to me. And I met my sister's brother because my roommate's brother, because she insisted on taking me home. She said her brother would marry me. I said, I don't even know him yet. But she took me home to her house because New York was too far. And that came out. I stayed at school for 3 years, and I enjoyed becoming a nurse, like all the other girls. I graduated with honors, and I passed the state boards. I also became a citizen during that time, because that was a bargain I drove when I entered school, that I would be a citizen before I graduated. And I did. I've been a citizen for many, many, many years. And that's what I am first. And after I met her brother, we started dating. He had a girlfriend, but I don't know what happened to her. She went by the sidelines. After I graduated from nursing, and he graduated from college, we married. We married in 1951, August of 1951, and we were married for 65 years. And I miss him dreadfully. We had 4 children. And now I have 4 grandchildren. I went back to Germany. I was invited by the Senate, and I found out where I I used to live, and I met a young lady who is a professor. We became very friendly, and she suggested that we put Stolpersteine in front of the house that I used to live in and was born in. Stolpersteine are little brass flags that they put into the cement of the street, just a bit higher, so you stop over them. And the stones are inscribed with my parents' names, their birth dates, the dates they died, that they were murdered, that they were sent to the Lodge Ghetto and were murdered in the Lodge Ghetto. And it gives the dates when they were murdered. I consider those my parents' graves because they do not have graves. They were thrown to the wind, and I don't know what happened to them. But at least these little stones give them some identity. They were born in Berlin. They were educated in Berlin. They lived in Berlin. They married in Berlin. And I was born in Berlin. So they deserve to have an identity. And I am happy that they finally got the little stones. And my friend puts roses on it every single holiday. And that's really nice of her. I also went to Sweden. Sent by a friend. I was speaking at a university in Miami, and the dean came in and his father, and they were so touched by my story and by my little sisters in Sweden that they kept saying, I gotta go to Sweden and meet them again. So he sponsored a trip to Sweden for me and my daughter. And we went to Sweden, and I met my little sisters, who are not little sisters anymore. They're old ladies like me now. And they're marvelous. We arrived at the baggage place, and I was standing there looking for my suitcase, and all of a sudden I heard somebody say, "You're my big sister." And I looked up, and there was one of the girls. She recognized my voice. And it was just such a joyful reunion. And we stayed with them for 10 days. And we saw parts of Sweden, and I saw the hospital, which is now a museum, library and museum or something like that. And we saw a lot of things that I had seen before and that had changed drastically. I also saw the house where I used to live, which is now what they call it, antique. It's now in a historic letter. It looked identical to what it looked like when I lived there with them. I mentioned my 4 children. So what do we learn of all this? What do we learn of all this?
Indeed. What did we learn from all of this? Have we learned anything, Helga?
What?
Do you think we've learned anything?
If they have any questions, they're welcome to ask. But I want to make the point that that I'm talking, mostly because of all the hate and all the things that are still amongst the people. We cannot go forward if we stop hating. We must respect and love our neighbors. There are many, I'm a Jew, but there are many other religions and colors and differences. We must respect the differences and learn from the differences rather than destroy them. And that is part of my mission, I think, to make a better life, to stop hating and to put love in front of everything is what we need to learn to do. And maybe someday we will get a better world.
Online, and I have them here. And I'm fortunate enough to have known Helga for a long time, but we've sort of reconnected in the past few weeks, and I got a chance to speak with her at her home and at Chabad, and I got to really ask her some questions that I know many of you probably would love the answers to. And I know that the reporters asked her fantastic questions. The Herald had a great article on Helga last week. But there was, when I read about her experience, there was always a few questions that I personally wanted answers to, and I think you will as well. So Helga and I went over a few things and along with some of your questions, and we're gonna go over
Maybe
them now.
I'll tell them right up front that my camp sisters came to this country eventually.
Right. Two of your camp sisters ended up in New York, and you were able to meet up with them. And one of them remains in Switzerland. Sweet. So that must have been a fantastic reunion when you got to be with them again. What do you think was the glue for you during that horrible time?
When what?
What kept you going?
Hope and youth and the love between us.
You and your four sisters. After surviving the loss of your family and living through the nightmare and enduring the trauma of the work camps, what motivates you to continue living and sharing your story?
I want to know people what happened because of hate and because of prejudice. And I hope that we can do better by listening to me and by learning. I talk in the schools, and if I can catch one little child to make a better world and to listen to not hate and to make a friend that she wouldn't make otherwise, that would make me happy.
That's a wonderful. What role did your faith play in helping you survive this horrific experience? You said that when certain things happened in the camps, you prayed and you sang. Do you think your faith helped you through that time?
Yes.
Your camp sisters, were they of the same faith as you?
Yes.
Everyone.
They were Jewish.
But yet they were from different countries.
Different countries, but they were Jewish.
Did you all speak the same language?
No.
So how did you communicate?
Mostly in German,
in German. So that was a common language.
common language at the time.
So you were fortunate to have them.
Yeah.
How should Jews feel today in these times?
Questioning of what's going to happen to our world with all the hatred going on and all the violence that the hatred produces. I don't know what's going to happen. We got to learn to get together.
Do you think enough is being done to teach the children?
Not really. Some of the classes I do, but there are many, many more that I'm not doing, nor the other Holocaust survivors are talking to the schools. But we don't get into every school. We get in some of the schools, and usually the same schools every year.
So you're offering, if there are people here in this room that have connections with the school systems, that you are willing to come and speak, if she's invited, and you can send your invitations through to the Chabad network, and we can get them to Helga so that she can get her message out to as many schools as possible and see if we can impact as many children as possible. Would you like that, Helga? To speak at more schools?
Yeah.
How do you feel about what's going on in Ukraine? How does that make you feel today?
It makes me feel very sad. I think we're doing the same thing over and over and over again as a world. It's a dictator who is ruining a country because of power, money, oil, who knows what. And is that really important? Why can't we get together and get along instead of killing each other and hating each other and destroying all the beauty of that country that's been there for so many, many years?
Absolutely. So here's a question that I have. Growing up, I never liked vegetables. And so I didn't really eat vegetables, and my mother always said that it was going to make me sick, that I was going to be short, which turned out to be correct. How do you feel being so starved and so depleted nourishment? How do you feel that that's impacted your health over the years? Are you relatively healthy? Did it really impact your health, or was it just...
It impacted my health, but the potato fields helped tremendously, I believe. I found out that potato fields have a lot of calories. Not calories,
Nutrition.
vitamins and nutrition. I don't know about the coffee ground. But,
So you're relatively healthy.
I'm relatively healthy now. I had a lot of problems getting pregnant because my female system was all out of whack. And I had many miscarriages before I finally had 4 healthy babies.
I have just one more question, and I want to, this one was my own as well. Were you ever sexually violated in camp?
No, I was fortunate
That's a
enough.
relief, right? And last question, for everyone out there. What's your relationship with God like today?
I believe in God. I believe in the soul. I don't believe in the formal religion of everything else. Some of it and some of it not, and I'm questioning it. And I guess to the end of my life, I will be questioning some of the things.
So there's always time.
But
So there's time. We always have time.
we always have time to question. But I do believe strongly that there is a God, and I also believe there is a soul.
You have a beautiful soul. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. Thank you very much.
I'd like to pull up our mayor of Venice to do a proclamation, followed by our young leader, and we're going to end up with Vladimir playing Jerusalem Gold. Mayor Pakoda, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Real quick before I get on with the proclamation, I do have something specific to Helga, and it's a recognition certificate commemorating her many years of dedication to combating bigotry and hatred. From the City of Venice, we appreciate you. Having been to Auschwitz as a younger man, I can tell you, if you haven't been, the feeling you get when you're in an environment like that. And this is post-war. This is many, many years after. It'll live with you forever. And I'm humbled but honored that I've had the ability to travel the world and see places like that, so that we never forget the evil that is out there, and that we continue to remember, as Helga has said, we have to live together and we have to love each other. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and proclaim Holocaust Education Week. Whereas Chabad of Venice and Northport is a center that is dedicated to actively promoting greater awareness of the concepts of education, morality, and decency amongst all people. And whereas Mrs. Helga Melmed, who is a survivor of the Holocaust, during which 6 million Jewish were murdered in dedication to combating bigotry and hatred. And whereas this is an opportunity to be utilized by educators, clergy, and civic leaders to highlight and emphasize the innate God-given rights endowed to every human being. And whereas the City of Venice supports an environment of acceptance and respect for human dignity. Now therefore, I, Nick Choden, Mayor of Venice, on behalf of the Venice City Council, do hereby proclaim February 20th through February 24th, 2023 as Holocaust Education Week.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kenny Campbell, and I'm a proud Jew and a member of the Chabad of Venice community. I stand before you today deeply moved and inspired by Helga Melmed's story as a Holocaust survivor. Her bravery and resilience in the face of unimaginable hardships is a testament to the strength of the human spirit, and I express my sincerest admiration. At the age of 16, I had the opportunity to take a life-changing trip to Poland, where I visited Auschwitz. This experience was deeply moving for me and gave me a strong sense of responsibility to take my Judaism seriously and to honor the memories of those who were lost. Our trip continued to Israel, where I saw the incredible joy of the Jewish nation thriving and rebuilding after the Holocaust. This gave me a strong sense of hope and a renewed commitment to the phrase, never again. The experiences and lessons I gained from this trip have shaped my goals in life. Firstly, I aim to empower teens with the knowledge about their Jewish heritage so that they can live proud and Jewish-inspired lives. Secondly, I want to help others absorb and understand the Jewish approach to tragedy, loss, and resilience in the face of hardship. And finally, I am dedicated to fostering a strong awareness of Jewish identity and encouraging a bolder commitment to this rich and meaningful tradition. The lessons of the Holocaust continue to impact future generations, and the experiences of survivors like Helga serve as a reminder of the importance of maintaining a strong Jewish identity. I am proud to say that my little brother and my niece have joined the Chabad of Venice Hebrew School, continuing the family connection to our faith. With my grandmother just moving down from New York, we are now 4 generations of Campbells who are proud members of this community. In conclusion, I want to express my deepest gratitude for the role that Chabad of Venice and Judaism have played in my life and the lives of so many others. I hope that my story, together with Helga's, will serve as a reminder of the importance of remembering the past and maintaining a strong connection to our faith and heritage. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Betty, for sharing your personal journey and your commitment to honoring the past and maintaining a strong Jewish identity. Your story is a reminder to us all of the importance of remembering the past and working towards a better future. Now, as we welcome back Vladimir Tsipin to perform Jerusalem of Gold, we are reminded of the deep connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. This beautiful music is a symbol of the hope and resilience of the Jewish people, of the importance of maintaining a strong connection to our faith and heritage. Let us take a moment to reflect on the significance of this year of Hanukkah, a year of coming together and renewing our commitment to our faith and community. As we listen to this music, let us pray for healing for all those who have suffered injustice and persecution throughout history, and for the strength and courage to continue the important work of remembering the past and building a better future for ourselves and for our future generations. And let us pray for redemption, for a time when we call all to be united in our homeland, free from oppression and persecution of the past. May we all be blessed with the strength and courage to continue the important work of remembering the past and building the future. Thank you. Vlad. you again, Vlad. Thank you, Helga, for sharing your story with us today. And may we all be inspired by the lessons of the past and the hope of the future. May we continue to work towards a better world for all. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you so much for coming.